Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining. We are glad to see you all. I know we have some new people, so thank you all for joining us. Just to let you know, for those of you who might not be familiar with Parkinson's Social Network, I'm Nancy. I'm one of the 6 volunteers who runs PSN. All of us have a personal connection to Parkinson's disease. We offer online programs every month. We welcome everyone. So we hope if you that you'll find the program today useful and you'll come back and join us again. Yes, here we have the link for our website and our phone number. So there is a human typically who answers calls, so we welcome you to contact us. And we welcome today Denise. Housekeeping points, which hopefully you can all see on your screen. We ask you to put questions in the chat. It will be monitored, and we will be able to address them whenever is the most convenient time for Denise and Bernard to answer them. As you can see, the program's being recorded. It will show up on the Parkinson's Social Network YouTube channel soon. So it'll give you a chance to see it and share it with others who might also be interested. Our presenters today are Denise and Bernard Coley. As you can see, they're co-chairs of the Black Support Group Leaders and Alliance, members of PDMovers, co-chairs of the Special Interest Group-Black Diaspora, and most importantly, for those of us in the Parkinson's community, passionate advocates, not only in the Parkinson's community, but throughout many business and community organizations they serve. They both have very robust bios. If I read their bios, we'd have no time to talk today. So they have very vast credentials, and if anyone has questions about, happy to share it later. So, whoops. Oh, that's me. Okay. We're going to have a conversation today. Denise and Bernard describes themselves as a couple living with Parkinson's. Doesn't mean they both have Parkinson's. It means that they're both passionate about uplifting and inspiring the Parkinson's community, and anyone who's ever had a connection to Parkinson's knows that the person who's living with a diagnosis is not the only person living with the disease. So we're gonna kick it off. I have a couple of things that we had talked. Angela, did you have something?
Yeah, Nancy, we were gonna let Bernard show their video to kind of help with their introduction. So I'm gonna tell him to toss it and turn on the videotape, Bernard.
Let's make a few remarks though.
Nancy, okay.
If you don't mind, I'd like to correct a couple of things you said. So this is actually going to be a tag team event this morning. Angela and Rob, Angela and Carl, when we get together, we have such a great time. We've had so much fun. We decided to put this comedy act on screen this morning. So it's actually going to be all 4 of us talking. We're going to try not to be as rowdy as we usually are when we get together, but we thought it would be a great backdrop for the conversation about communication in this thing. So they're equal billing. In fact, they may be top billing on the screen. If I could see that far, I would be able to tell you. So that's number 1. So it's going to be 4 of us. It's not going to be just the 2 of us. Especially because once Carl gets going, the other 3 of us don't have any space. So that's number 1. Number 2, I would be remiss if I didn't reach out to all the care partners out there, all the caregivers, to say Happy Caregiver Month, and because that's really important. I mean, you know. From our perspective, we make the world go around. I know there's these other Parkies in the room who disagree, but from our perspective, it's the care partners that make the world go around. So Happy Caregiver Month. And then the last thing I'll say before I close is thank you very much for having us, for letting us join your party this morning. You know, if every meeting is like the ones we've had with Angela, you know, I'm just going to get my champagne bottle up, set it up each week, each month, and you know, get going, enjoying the meeting. So it's wonderful. Thank you all for having us. So the final thing I'll say is I'll set this video up. So Denise and I are in a book, which you can see over my right and left shoulder, PDMovers, We Keep Moving. And the interesting about the book is it is a model for reaching communities. It's a model for providing PD education through storytelling by the people who are impacted by the particular disease, in this case, Parkinson or Parkinsonian conditions. And we've taken that model a lot of places because, you know, don't tell the health benefit organizations this, but, you know, mankind has been educating people through storytelling a lot longer than they existed. You know, stories didn't start with them collecting stories. So taking that model as an effective way of providing education, we have been doing that. And we took it a step higher, thanks to Brian Grant. And so what you're going to see this morning is, since it's Care Party Month, I am going to play a story which introduces me to this, to you all today. And then I'll turn it over to Denise to introduce herself, because rarely do I get to go first. All right, give me 1 second here and we will be ready to go. My computer this morning is having fun. Okay, here we go. Share sound. All right, and share, and then I'll watch, and then you're there. And are you? Hello?
Yeah.
It's the screen hasn't changed yet. I'm not sure why.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on a different screen on my computer. Here, oh, that's interesting.
We're seeing all your files, Bernard.
I know, but what's interesting is that's not what I'm seeing. All right, let me restart this share. I am seeing something completely different on my screen than what you're seeing.
Don't you love Zoom? Great technology.
Here, share. That started to make me a little nervous that Zoom is seeing something other than what I told it could see.
All right.
All right, here we go. That's
almost.
Yeah, I am sitting here as many times as we've done this. I am thoroughly surprised at what I'm seeing on my screen.
I think we got it. Hold on.
Yeah. Well, it's not in large screen mode yet. Here we go. There we go.
When you plant seeds in a garden, your labor rewards you with sustaining food. My wife, Denise, has apathies, especially food apathy. This is a nightmare for a foodie like me. But since I'm not the patient, people don't want to hear my complaints. I feel so invisible at times, like the wind rustling the leaves. Not that I seek recognition, but an acknowledgement here and there would go a long way. You see, my wife got this really bad disease with no known cure. She got the diagnosis, but we, the family, and I, share the burdens. Now she doesn't care or want to eat. I prepare showcase platings like these to keep her interested in eating. She tastes the food with her eyes, and it works. Over the years, we developed great plans for our golden years. But now, that ship has sailed. I'm learning to embrace our situation and invent a new me. So I introduce the Quarantine Chef. Come along, I said. Let's travel through food. Let's enjoy exciting, exotic, and uplifting but healthy meals. Culturally appropriate music and a spinning earth globe enhance our dining journeys on the International Comfort Food Tour. I've prepared dishes from over 135 countries. To my family, the Quarantine Chef is a cult hero and a good distraction for me. But when I return from the food tour, I'm still spiraling. My emotions, my life's goals, my daily plans, and Denise's ever-evolving disease symptoms. So what if I'm covering over my life losses? Our spontaneity, intimacy, my personal time, my independence, my innocent unawareness of aging and health. I found a silver lining. Those things once thought lost are showing up now as I prepare each meal. I see them even if no one else does. They're sometimes invisible to others, just like I am as the care partner. Oh, sorry for being rude. Let me introduce you to our nemesis, Parkinson's disease. Miss Parkinson's is an uninvited guest in our lives, a royal pain. Ironically, she has brought forth hidden artistic talents in me. She has reminded me of what's really important in my life. She has Denise and I finally working together with shared goals. And she has brought us closer together now than during our first 50 years together. My seeded garden is sustaining us.
Wow, Bernard, thank you so much. And Denise for that. I have to say that I'm ready to jump through the screen and enjoy some of your platings.
So now I'll turn it over to my muse, the motivating factor here. This is Denise.
Hi, I'm Denise, and I'm here for Care Partner Month, and to say thank you to all the care partners. We couldn't progress this journey without the diligence, the courage, and the leadership and empathy and compassion that you show. So I'm really excited to join Angela and Carl in this conversation, as well as Bernard, about partners and couples and how we have survived and lived the experience around the journey. Thank you.
Well, thank you both for sharing this personal side of yourselves. And it was certainly something that when we got together, as Bernard said, we've had a couple meetings of chaos for the 4 of us. But it's certainly the communication aspect is what shines through the most. Hey, it's time for some dyskinesia. Why not? What the heck? If it's not Zoom, it's dyskinesia. Breathe through your toe. Yeah. So, one of the things we had talked about and when we did our meeting prep was this importance of communication. And one of the ideas that you both brought out was that if the communication really isn't there before the diagnosis, sometimes that just makes communicating after the diagnosis extremely hard.
Yeah.
And I know it's one thing that's important in our communication is person with Parkinson's and a care partner is that if we don't talk about even the smallest of things, sometimes the miscommunication is worse than not talking about it at all.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's really important to have the communication. And actually, that's the silver lining of Parkinson's, to really be more enriched with that communication. Parkinson's came knocking on the door, and we were on two different tracks going down the road with the life's journey of what we're doing. But because of Parkinson's, we were able to come together and work as a team to talk about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So it's very special for us to talk about the importance of communication. And one of the things I think most importantly is the things that you did before, you can still do, it just might be doing something different. One of the things that I enjoyed doing with the kids as they were growing up was doing gratitude every day in their lunch boxes. And so now for Care Partner Month and every day, we're looking at maybe there should be gratitude jars so that there's joy, gratitude, and thanks each day to make it stronger. There's nothing like laughter, communication, and expressing feelings is the most important thing that I think can happen with a couple when you have Parkinson's in the journey, because each day is a different day. So you might have to learn something new or do something old each day.
I hear you, Denise. I really do.
Well,
Just like Carl having dyskinesia right out of the blue. Do you want to just take a few seconds and then?
Just like the weather. I think things change every 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I would say welcome to Parkinson's, but you already know that.
Exactly.
Well, and we like to tell the story. I'll go there about Parkinson's. You heard in the video me saying, Parkinson's. She just showed up in our lives, and tried to take over. And so, as Denise mentioned, we started whispering to each other about this third lady in the bed. I was like, hey, now this, she's got to get out. Okay. I don't know how they do it over in the Middle East with a harem, but she's got to get out of this bed. And it was the beginning, as Denise just alluded to, of better communications. And Carl it was funny. Part of the reason Carl and I hit it off was he started telling all these stories that and sharing things in his background. And again, on the theme of storytelling, you start to learn more about that other person when they start opening up and telling the stories of their lives. And I'll say from the care partner perspective that it does make it easier to accept what's happening when you know some background on it. So one of our communication tips is don't be afraid to tell your story. You may think, oh, they're going to think odd of me or they're going to think other things, but no. Human nature is that we begin to be more appreciative, more understanding, more accepting when we know the background story of people and the people we're with. So we encourage you to, tell your story. Now, I get it. Some of you have stories that, it may not be better on the other side than if you kept it to yourself. But in general, for us, we found that it's better when we tell stories. So I'll tell this one. So care partner. I tell people I didn't become a care partner in 2018 when Denise got her diagnosis. That's not when it happened. I became a care partner on July 4th, 1976, when I gave up my independence for Independence Day. And I said, I do. That's the day I became a care partner for Denise, and she became a care partner for me. The big wait was that I have to tell you that the informed consent document on the day that we married was woefully inadequate. It did not lay out all the things that have happened in our 53 years. So, if I did anything, I'd go back and rewrite the informed consent. Although, truth be told, if it was all out there, I might not be here today.
Well, and I hear you, Bernard. I mean, when Carl and I met each other, which we met online first and then had a blind date and got together.
I was in prison.
Carl was not in prison. He lived in DC. Maybe that was prison. I don't know. Anyway, but from the get-go, we were friends first. And I think that made it, it made it easier to, in some ways, to communicate with each other. And of course, for all those who might not be familiar with our story, I met Carl after he was diagnosed. So he had already been diagnosed for 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, somewhere in there, before we got together and had our blind date. But we were always open and honest with the communication from the get-go. So
pretty honest.
Minus him lying about being in prison. But I think the foundation was laid at that point, and occasionally do we have to go back, and I think I said it yesterday, you really need to let me know when you're not feeling, he was talking about everything else except the fact that he wasn't feeling so hot when he first woke up yesterday morning. And he said that, it was like an hour of time went by. And then he says, oh, and by the way, my stomach doesn't feel so good. I was like, you took me on this journey like for an hour and didn't even tell me. I was like, whoa, that explains so much stuff. And I'm like, but you have to put yourself first. It's not egotistical. I need to know what your status is, because how do I react if something else is going on? There may be some kind of, without you telling me, it's like I'm flying without a navigation. So I kind of need to know where you're at.
That can be adventurous though.
It can be adventurous, but I'm not a very good pilot when I don't have a map of where we're going.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because we're going through that right now, because Denise is having her meds changed. And so we're going through that adjustment period that happens every time you change the meds or adjust the dosage or, change what particular treatment you're on. And that's a very important point, Angela. I'm sitting there observing, and I'm past the what the hell is going on point. I mean, I know it's Parkinson's, it's the drugs, etc. But it still is important to communicate how you're feeling. And I balance that out by the other side, which is we just came off of reversing roles. I got really sick in June, and I found myself laying there going, I'm not going to tell her. I don't want her to get upset. I don't want all these other things. And then I caught myself going, you sound just like a patient, and you're failing to communicate. And all these things you tell other people, here you are laying in the bed and you don't want to do it. Okay. So I got new insight into, get off your soapbox a little bit. Get humble.
Take away his empowerment.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
and bite the bullet. And Denise, I don't feel good. And ignore the fact that I'm racing to the bathroom every 20 seconds. I don't feel good. Yeah.
Well, that's why it's care partners, that when the pendulum does swing the other way, that's the partner piece of it. Did you want to say something?
Bite the Bullet is a great movie too.
But it is, a lot of times it is the wave, yeah. Right now, I guess with Denise's med change, the wave is a little bit more on her side. But then, when something like that comes up, Bernard, yeah, you absolutely have to shift. And although, and the same thing goes for daily things. Like, there be some days I hardly do anything for Carl, to help him with his activities of daily living. And then there are other days when the meds decide to, not show up that day, or there's just more Parkinson symptoms.
Well,
what do you want to say?
Well, it's every 5 minutes.
Sometimes it's every 5 minutes.
Carl, that's an excellent point. I mean, as we talk about this from the context of communication, That's why it's so important to communicate,
Mhm.
because you're going through instead of a nice long wave coming in the shore, it's like this the splashing is going on, and the problem is we might not be looking at you at that moment, literally and figuratively,
Right.
but we need to know, because that next big tsunami is coming in and it's about to to hit, and it's a challenge to prepare for it. If you're blindsided. So it's important to communicate, because if not, you could be washed out into the ocean when the wave comes in.
Yeah, and I'm on a small dinghy.
Yeah. I think we all are. Yeah.
Well, and that kind of goes with one of the things we had talked about earlier, which was that everybody's got something. Whether it's Parkinson's or some other kind of health condition. And on top of all that, I think we talked about what's age versus what's Parkinson's or any other kind of health situation that might be going on. And as both people in the relationship age, then all these other factors come in, and trying to keep an eye, to be observational, but yet not be so observational it's actually kind of intrusive, I guess would be the word I would use. And as Carl says, sometimes he's like, it's another thing I have to think about, that I have to do on top of the voice exercises and the regular exercise and speaking with intent, walking with intent, and all that. It does get overwhelming sometimes. Denise, do you ever feel like that too?
Yes, I think about what I learned from this. From the very beginning, you learn that everybody is affected. And so you have to make sure that you communicate effectively with everyone who is in your area.
Your spirit, yeah.
Yeah. For instance, we're in a 3-generational home, so it has to go across that. We have animals, you have to go across that. You have to be resilient and making sure that you stay in touch with what's going on and realizing that you're impacting everybody. So if you're impacting everybody and every Parkinson's person is different, well, the care partner is being impacted and is going like this, because each day is so different. So the main thing of that part of communication is, all right, things are changing for the person with Parkinson's. The care partner is affected, but the care partner has to take care of themselves. They have to be given gratitude and joy and the respite that they need in order to help out. If the care partner is not part of that value proposition and making sure that they're healthy, the whole team goes down. So both sides have to communicate where they are with their feelings. Bernard, when I first was diagnosed, he told the whole household, here is my schedule. This hour, do not bother me. This hour, I'm preparing a meal. So it was very evident what was going on. But we also had to realize that we have different opinions in the house. So everyone communicates it, especially when it comes to the food. Thumbs up, thumbs down, let's have a discussion. So patience is a virtue with this. Resilience is really important. And communicate in order to have a little bit steady dinghy.
And listening.
Yes.
Well, now we get to the important. Okay, people can talk your ears off, but if you're not listening, okay,
Intently listening.
and when we say listening, I don't mean listen to prepare a response. Okay, I mean listen for understanding in the process what's happening there. And I have to tell you, for all those who think, well, I heard them. Okay, there's a little, I forgot what it's called, but I know you think, do you understand what I said, because you think you heard what I said, but in reality, no, you didn't. What I said was the best I could communicate, but what I meant was this, okay? And that's really important, because if you're listening, preparing a response, you're not processing, understand what's going on. So, I'll share a little insight, because storytelling is part of what we're talking about today. So you're sitting in the office, and I know all you care partners can relate to this. You're sitting in there in the appointment, and your spouse is saying there's nothing wrong, everything is okay, and you're dying, okay? You're absolutely dying. It's not true. And yeah, you just want to wring their neck for 5 seconds. I know none of you have ever felt like that, but you want to wring their neck. But if you're listening, what I suspect you didn't hear was, I am very uncomfortable. I do not want to succumb to this disease. I do not want to admit where I am. I am talking to the person that's reputedly my doctor, who I should be honest with, but I'm just not there at the moment. Okay. And so if you're listening, you're thinking to yourself, okay, should I just correct this person because they're just wrong and they just don't think? Or should we work on creating the safe space that they need to relax and open up? And first to admit, guilty. In the beginning, it's like, you gotta be kidding. Why don't you tell her the truth? And then I started to learn, okay, wait a minute. I can communicate with the neurologists on the wink system of communication. Not happening. Or
There are two realities sitting in that room. The reality of the person with Parkinson's and the reality of the care partner. They may not always mesh, and trying to get a unified communication out of that is very difficult at times.
Yeah, it is. So we're not here. I mean, we like to laugh. I mean, tell, but the reality is it is tough. So we don't want to, we don't want to sugarcoat this and say, oh no, this. But here's what I've learned by here comes that word, listening. I actually found out that my neurologist was listening. And after many frustrating visits, when it didn't seem like she was listening, she actually was. She was not only listening, but she was observing the dynamic and learning us. And so we were beginning to communicate, not necessarily through words, but she's not blind. I mean, one of the things that took me a while to understand, she's not blind. She could see what's happening with Denise. She could see what's happening with me. She was also processing. As Denise said, you impact the whole environment. She was also processing. Okay, I got some people in front of me. She's smart enough to know that Parkinson's is not a disease of a person. It's a disease of the community around that person. And she was trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to work this so that on balance, everybody's better off? And that's why I say to the people with Parkinson's, that's why it's also important for you to communicate, because exactly what really is going on. And here's what I mean. I often joke and say, I'm not a mind reader, okay? I need the clues. And it's taken 53 years to get to the point where whatever comes out of Denise's mouth is one thing, but I can read all the rest of the signals to figure out what's really going on. But that took 53 years. Okay? The person on the other side of that desk there, or in the exam room with you, they haven't had the 53 years. They've had a few moments, and it's one of the challenges I have with this whole medical delivery system. You get your 15 minutes in there in a 30-minute interview, and then you're gone, and then they don't see you again for 6 months. Well, the kind of communication we're talking about, that's a tough environment for it to even exist. Okay, so it's really important. And this is the message I would give to the people with Parkinson's on the call. We get it. We get it. We need to hear from you, though. We would prefer to hear exactly what's going on from you than to guess, because, she's right. I get it wrong most of the time. Okay. So it's a mission in public.
Well, actually, we just had a question come in, Bernard, which kind of picks up on it. So all four of us, I hope we can address this. So it says, when PD becomes so advanced that the person with Parkinson's cannot speak clearly or write, how do we communicate? Do you have any thoughts or feelings about?
I'll let you and Carl go first, and then we'll.
Well, First thing that occurs to me is things that you have in common, like music and video and pictures
Mhm.
and food and all the things.
So you use different ways to communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll build on that.
Okay.
I if at all possible, I would try to take advantage of the really great times. If there is a period of time during the day or any time where things are more optimal to provide the communication. And I would kind of build on what Carl said, pictures, using the pictures, or even
Soundtrack of your life. Soundtracks of your life.
soundtracks of your life. Maybe try to focus more in, I mean, facial masking certainly is something that completely can throw a huge wrench into the communication piece, because the face isn't working like it used to because of the muscles. So maybe even touch, use the power of touch, as you're maybe use a squeeze. So you say to your loved one, what would you like to do today? Are you interested in maybe let's go out on the deck and sit for a little bit, and then use the squeeze as a positive, or
Go to the
a
park.
yes and no, something that would try to get a little bit maybe out of the box, but try to find ways that might be easier to communicate. You may even want to ask if you have a physical therapist or an occupational therapist. They might have some ideas how to improve communication. If
Speech therapy.
there might be a device, yes, or speech therapy there may be something that you can put together, maybe even some type of, I know
Software.
that children, yes, software, but if that's not possible, I know some children sometimes, when there's a communication issue, they'll have pictures on a sheet, or that you might be able to point to use that as a form of communication. Those are just the first thoughts off the top of my head.
No, those are excellent. But let me point out something about all these things. They didn't just start in the moment. This part of what we're communicating, hopefully, the message we're sending, is you have to prep for this. This stuff builds up over time. So part of it is, especially for me as a care partner, becoming acceptance of the circumstance and say, let me prepare for what's coming. And so some of these communications, by the way, Angela, I noticed that you were communicating with Carl earlier on when his dyskinesia was bad. So I'm going to lift that up to people. Here we are in the middle of a presentation, how inconvenient for Parkinson to show up and act up. But I saw you reaching over and letting Carl know it was okay. Okay. I don't know if the rest of you knows, but I noticed it right away. And that was that was an example of the kind of communication
It hurt.
that goes beyond the words, And then Carl communicates. That's why one reason I love it. Carl communicates at times through his humor. Okay, so it's things that he's doing. He's letting people know I'm okay. Okay, or maybe I'm not okay. I'm nervous as hell, so I'm gonna tell this crazy joke. But we get it, and so if you're open to listen, and you're observing, which is the important part of it. You don't have to, when people get in their later stages, they don't have to be able to get the words out. There's a very famous movie about a coach out here near where we are, Los Gatos High School, who got ALS. And he coached for about 9 years after he lost his voice. I mean, he could communicate a little bit of whisper. But his wife gradually took over speaking for him. All right. And they coached the team and went to the doctor, and his team was a league champion during some of those years. So it's not just I can hear your voice and hear what you're saying. It's developing the kind of communication that comes from a good partnership. You know, you hear people say, I didn't have to say it. They knew, they completed my sentence and they knew where I'm going. That takes a little work. So, you know, that takes sitting there through some of the tough times and going, oh, Angela's laughing because we
Get it wrong all the time, Bernard.
yeah. But that's why it takes practice.
And I hear about it too.
I did an excellent job imitating her voice yesterday.
Yeah, I told him if he mimicked me like that, it's gonna come back one day. But you're right. Go ahead.
There's some things that really do help communication. You know, you've been with the person for a while. There's certain things that are triggers that help communication. Either sit down and eat and talk, or sit down and say, hey, you know what? We need to go for a ride to water. And then go and sit down and watch the water and have a conversation. The other thing is what I told the kids, you learn the starfish method, which is 5 steps of deep breathing.
Yeah, there you go.
Go in, hold, breathe out, and you do that on every finger. By the time you get to the 5th finger, you can have a great conversation because you're more calm and more relaxed. Because sometimes communication starts because of conflict, and the conflict gets worse. So someone has to be the one who sits back and says, let's take 5, do some deep breathing, and then reconnect to it. So there's all kinds of forms of communication and listening that couples learn over time because they've been together with each other.
The other thing I find as in this, and this goes across communication, is sometimes the problem isn't what my partner is trying to communicate. It's me processing a bunch of other stuff like, oh my God, I got to go deal with that. Oh, geez, you know, and while you're doing all that, which is human nature, you're not listening. Okay, so it wouldn't matter what they said. You're not listening. You're processing it. So, but what I'm sharing that to say, we get it. That's why this is hard. That's why you have to practice it, because you have to catch yourself and think about where you are. Okay, so I know, you know, when that video I made, actually, I'll start unpacking more of it. It's about the journey. You know, as a caregiver, all of a sudden, it's not like my life was empty. I didn't have enough on my plate when this whole thing started.
Really?
Okay. You know, when my wife grabbed me by the collar and said, we're going to become research advocates, I was like, what?
Why?
When? You see this calendar? You know, where are we, how are we gonna, you know, but you know, you go. And so, yeah, that truly, if you're feeling a little resentment at times, that's human. It's okay. Okay. What you have to do is, though, kind of get past that. So my tip is to start turning these things into joyful things. So this quarantine chef that I came up with, there were 3 things that happened in that. The first is I turned a drudging chore into something I could have fun with. Okay. It's also a time that I can be just me and focused on the task and the art in the task, you know, and preparing those meals and stuff. So I got that. And then I got to share that with the family. So I took something that's a everyday, I mean, I listen to people all the time. Oh no. And then I have to put this meal this way and I have to put it in the blender and, but that's focus on the drudgery. How about, what can you do that's fun? How can you turn this into something more valuable? Okay. So trying to turn, you know, first getting in touch with myself going, oh no, another chore. And then say, okay, so it's going to be there. It's not going to go anywhere. Just like Mrs. Parks says, it's not going to leave the building. So what can we do to sort of, I had to adjust my attitude about the job that was there. I had to adjust my attitude about, well, I'm going to have to change my schedule. And I'm a guy that was like on the schedule, you know, plan ahead. I'm 6 months out. I know what I'm doing on July 12th, 2025. Problem is, Mrs. Parkinson's doesn't read my calendar and doesn't cooperate. And in fact, she's so rude that when we get up in the morning She has the audacity to tell me my schedule is going to change for the day. Okay, just you know, it's like you are one rude. You know what? Okay, can you? I don't want to use the term on. Yeah. But you know, and in the beginning, it's real to be resentful, and as the disease progresses, it's real to have your resentment build up. The issue then becomes: have you practiced how to get out of that resentful space and into a more positive space before it's overwhelming? Okay, so my tip is practice that as soon as you can. Right, and even if you're already in the state where it's progressed and communication is hard, if you can get those kind of things into a parking lot over here, the communication will be there. You can get more creative. You can do what Andrew was talking about. Remember the touch. You can get, you know, the wink, the expression. You can get those things in, but you have to get your emotional state and place into the parking lot so that you can go back to being creative and communicating and doing it. Because as long as that fog is there in front of you, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard.
What did you want to say, Carl?
Parkinson's is a terrible listener. Yeah, you can talk to it all you want, but it has its own mind.
And its own agenda. And it doesn't give a hoot about Bernard's calendar or anybody's calendar. I mean, we always say you got plan A through double Z or triple Z, because you just never know what the heck is going to happen in the day. Like which playbook am I playing out of now? Because and you have to, that flexibility. I think you're right. It takes years to develop that flexibility, and we still, you know, back to the dyskinesia at the beginning of the recording, some people would just absolutely freak out because the dyskinesia was so bad. Hey, you know what? It's going to happen. Just take a breath. Like Denise was saying with the starfish. I love that, by the way. I've never heard that one before, but I'm totally going to steal that today. But it's not going to make it any better if I get all stressed out about the dyskinesia. Just let it happen, let it flow. And eventually Carl will settle it down, or it will settle itself down, or you're right, the touch might,
or I'll fall asleep,
or Carl falls asleep before. But and I think we used to be self-conscious about it. We're not self-conscious about it anymore.
It is what it is. Yeah.
And a lot of times Carl turns it into teaching moments. I years and decades ago now, we would go out to dinner probably about 6 o'clock in the evening to a restaurant.
Why is that man doing that?
Yeah. Well, and he would start having these violent dyskinesias. We did eventually find out it was that old time release Cinemet that was just absolutely wretched to take. And you know, he wouldn't be able to eat his dinner, and people would look, and if they did ask, Carl would take it and make it a teachable moment. But that takes a long time to get to that point.
Excellent.
Well, and some people just don't they don't want to know, or they just don't want to ask. So it's but I would say a lot of Parkinson's is stress, just stress related. If you can control the stress, things get better. Being perfect. Angela was yelling from the other room. You're perfect. Something
I don't think you wanted to hear what the other end of the perfect was.
Well, you know,
it's all about perspective, Carl.
That's a good point. When you were a kid, you were curious about everything and anybody different. What is interesting is, and we see this across the community, I put people in kind of two groups. Ones who are like Carl, who turn them into teachable moments, and the others that go into stress, which just makes it worse, okay? So what a kid does when they see that is they just say, oh, so that's what the environment is like. And they go on, okay? It's the adults who get the hang up. So Carl, I'm with you. I try to turn these into awareness moments, you know, so I make jokes and say things like, well, you know what? Parkinson's is like cooties. If you come any closer to me, you're going to get it. And then you see the panic go on their face. And I go, Just kidding. You can't catch it. Okay. And I started trying to put people more at ease because it's their fear and their lack of awareness which is causing this. Because if they knew that this is involuntary from in Parkinson's patients, and it may be related to the meds, and and you're not going to be like this the rest of your life. You'll have moments in that mode and in moments out of it mode. Then they can adjust. And part of our problem part of our challenge in the Parkinson's community, I don't call it a problem, is there is a tremendous lack of awareness. From employers who want to get rid of an employee who they find out have Parkinson's, to we have a friend who's working on churches. All she does is try to talk to the church to get them to create a safer, a trusting and safe environment so that the Parkinson's patients and their families can return to church. And the church is usually stunned when they first hear it. What? We welcome everybody. Well, no, you don't. Because if we come to church and everybody's staring at you, then that's not so welcoming. And so her point is to go around and she's using students and things to change environments. So Carl's communication is really important because it changes the understanding that the community around us has. And I believe it leads to more tolerance. And that's on us, by the way. I don't put that off on them to figure it out. It's on us to communicate and say, hey, give me a moment. You're not gonna die. You're not gonna get cooties. Okay. I had a great laugh at you for acting like that. But the truth is, no, it's just something we have to live with. And I'm sure you don't want me to get up and go, Yeah.
Well, Bernard, you had mentioned in the prep meeting, I was reading my notes today, and you had mentioned that if you don't talk about it, the people it's a vacuum. And if you don't fill the vacuum with the right information, they're going to fill the vacuum with the wrong, well, not wrong, or, they're going to fill the vacuum with their mind. And,
yeah.
and it's better to set them on the right course and be upfront with them, either prep them ahead of time or try to address it as soon as it's happening so that the people don't fill that vacuum with incorrect information.
David, that's an excellent point. David just put a note in: the lack of understanding inadvertently breeds intolerance. And that is absolutely correct. It does. And that's why I said, though, it's not their fault. We are the ones that are going to have to communicate that. They don't know. So, that's why I love Carl's attitude. I mean, ever since the first time I saw Carl at anything, well, first off, I thought maybe it was a side effect of Parkinson's. This guy's cracking jokes all the time. All right. Then I realized that no, he has an excellent attitude and he's attempting to communicate. And by not hiding, it helps the community around us. Okay. I mean, I work when we talk about our support group stuff, we try to talk to our support group people that, we're going to have to go outside of this. If we want change in the environment, we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to communicate. And I know it's tough, and it's, the old days, Bill Cosby used to say, we're going to go out there and we're going to charge it, we're going to fight, and some of us are going to die. And, he said, yeah, some of us are going to have some tough moments as we try to communicate. But if we don't do this, they're just going to get less tolerant.
Well, the two of you are models for communicating. I mean, you're always doing something for somebody.
Just before I started, I wiped the blood off.
Well, Gary, I really like your point in the chat as well. It's absolutely, it does take a lot longer, and I have to confess myself, sometimes I'm in a rush to respond, and you do kind of have to wait and let the person with the condition have an opportunity to speak. And word retrieval can take a lot of time. But you're right, we owe that to
I mean,
not just our loved ones, but anyone with in the community or any other kind of
and
condition.
it's worse for an English major. It's even harder.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. But no, Gary, but that's an excellent point. But that's so I'm not sure whether you're a care partner or a person with Parkinson, but I put that on us as care partners. See, and part of my argument, go back to the beginning. When Denise got her diagnosis, she went into peanuts mode. All she heard was wah 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 wah. In the meantime, I heard the doctor for the next 30 minutes, and then I tell people the longest trek of my life was the walk from the doctor's office back to the car, because Denise went into this mode. He gave me a death sentence. No, he didn't. He gave me a death sentence. He gave me that, and I was spending my time at that moment trying to convert her from she's going to die tomorrow. Let's get the will, the kids, everybody together, whatever. Into no, he gave you a life-changing sentence. Okay, not a death sentence. And it's really going to be important that we communicate. Well, Denise didn't want to tell anybody. So I gave her a 5-second pity party and then said, okay, let me show you something you're not recognizing. People stare at me. People look at me like I did something bad because they know something's going on with you, but they're looking at me like, what did I do? Okay. So I know you don't see that because you're in the middle of your pity party. So I realized as a care partner that one of the things I was going to have to do to challenge this intolerant environment around was to explain to people what's going on, to put them somewhat at ease by giving them the knowledge. And that's one of the reasons why I went to the Research Institute, to learn more myself so that I could do a better job of communicating to family and friends about what's going on. So we didn't start there, Carl. We didn't start off as good role models for this. It started off with analysis of, look, how are we going to make our lives better? I don't want to go every place I go and have people staring at me because that makes me uncomfortable. I don't want people looking at me like, what did you do? Did you beat her with a stick or something? Why is she looking at this? All, like I said, there's the vacuum. All those things they fill in the dots with.
Story version.
Yeah, their version of the story. And I'm like, no. And then I realized, no, but that's on me. That's on me to communicate. That's on me. And this is to get to your point, Andrew. This is on me to tell them that her speech is going to be slow or it's going to be very soft so that they can barely hear you. But you got to pause, because guess what? There is a lot of valuable content when it finally gets out. That's what I said. I love Carl. If you pause for a second and wait for it, you're going to get jewels. You're going to get diamonds coming out of it. Now, it may have taken 5 minutes, fine, but you get the diamonds. On the other hand, there's the fast-talking kid over there like Bernard, and he throws out stuff, and he can talk for 10 minutes and not say anything. And Carl talks.
Gems from both sides.
Yes.
But I do want to pitch a question to you both. So kind of in that same vein, what about, and I guess I'll direct it to Denise first, and then or you guys can figure it out. When someone doesn't understand what you say and they turn their gaze to Bernard and wait for Bernard to do the translation for you. That's kind of a newish thing that we have going on. Have you faced that too?
We've faced that in terms of not hearing. And so we always have discussions about it. As a matter of fact, when Bernard first did, I said, where's your hearing aid? If you have the hearing aid on, you can hear me. And so that's some of the same things that I think when someone else does it. So I'm saying, well, is it that I didn't articulate or you just didn't hear it? Because I was too soft to do it. But it's better to confront what the true issue is so that you can respond and say, this is what you can do to help me or help yourself to understand the circumstances. One of the main things I have learned, and it was something that I pounded into my head at WPC, we have to have patience, because on the first step of the journey, a lot of language and speech is very easy. But as you go along the journey, it's a little bit harder. So making sure that you wait at least 10 seconds for the person to respond. Because remember, there's cognition that's going on, there's a voice that's going on. So out of respect, if you really want to hear the person, wait, and the person will come back to it. And that's why if someone tells me something, I'm trying to put it in what category. Because for people with Parkinson's, we're all patient with each other. Not that people around us have been touched by that part. So I always say 10-second rule, and then we can start and have a conversation.
I was guilty of doing that. In the first number of Parkinson's events I went to, I was getting frustrated that people were taking so long to communicate. I hadn't met that many Parkinson's patients before knowingly. I hadn't had the benefit of going through listening to people talk about people going in the closet with Parkinson's as a reaction. I hadn't heard any of those things. So it took a few minutes, more than a few minutes, it took some time before I started putting it all together and going, oh, I'm part of the problem. You know, I'm demanding that people speak quickly. You know, so one of the wake up calls, the clunk on the head was, you know, that could be you. And how would you feel if that was you? You know, how would you feel if, you know, you got a Mike Tyson punch in the mouth and nobody wanted to do, you know? Yeah. So I started realizing, whoa, probably the onus is on the receivers here. And so, Angela, to your point, what I have done at times is, yes, sometimes I do finish it if, you know, we're feeling like we got time pressure, we want to get some things out. But at other times I go, you know, Denise, you know, give Denise a chance. Give her a second or two. Just one of the, and I use it, Carl, because I love this. I use it as a teachable moment. I used to tell people there's a lot coming down the road here if you just hang on for a second, because I realize that culturally we've been we've been acclimated and programmed to be in this hurry up mode. And David, I'm going to use this as a chance to bring in the point you raised in your comment. Public education about PD there's a lot of other stuff going on. So one of the tricks that Denise and I have used to provide more knowledge about Parkinson's is we talk about brain health, okay? Which has a positive connotation instead of a stigmatizing connotation, which Parkinson's does have. So we talk about brain health. Everybody wants good brain health. And after I got their attention, I started saying, well, let me use an example like Parkinson's disease. And then I give them the sub bullets underneath of it. And that has been an effective way to get people's attention, cut through all the other noise or the barriers they put up, because Parkinson's got to be bad, especially if they don't know about it. Parkinson's got to be bad. Okay, brain health, good stuff, positive stuff, and then, oh, by the way, a symptom of Parkinson's is not that you lose your mind, is that you lose your ability to communicate fast, or sometimes you're halfway through the thought and a fog hits for a second or two. Just give them a minute to come out of the fog, and the rest will come. And by the way, the second part of your point was there are no public spots about PD. It turns out that some of us are out there working on some of those things, and we got frustrated trying to get the public health benefit organizations to do this in the way that we thought would be more effective. They do spots, but you know, too many times they're promoting themselves and not talking about the disease. So what some of us have done, like PD Avengers as a group, is we're raising awareness in a different model. We're actually communicating the essence of what we're talking about to be a Parkinson's patient or be a care partner for someone with Parkinson's. And that's why you saw that video that I did. So we are getting the information out, because that thing isn't just, the Brian Grant Foundation, bless their heart, put it on their site and that's where it sits. We said, no, that's not what it's going to take. So we're traveling with things like that. Denise has one, and others. And every medical conference we speak at, we play some of those things. So we're in essence doing what we would hope those other organizations had done, making the spot the way we want to communicate what we need, the messages we need to, and then take them out and play them as many places as we can. And my suggestion is that the entire Parkinson's community, we need to do that. We need to get our stories in as many places as possible. So when you see something like that, feel free to take that to any place you're talking. Feel free to take that into your other support groups and play it. That's the difference for us. We're out there actively finding people's stories and voices, and then we take them everywhere we go, and turn those into teachable moments. So they're surprised. In fact, last year, see over my shoulder here, this abstract we took to a medical conference, and it won top abstract. And you should have heard the murmurings going around as people were saying, "Are they doctors? Are they won the top abstract at a medical conference? Are they doctors?" And and I was laughing because you see they've been programmed. The ones that thought it was great and voted for it didn't look at, just assume we were doctors. In fact, we've had people call us. It wasn't a point. For us, the point was to communicate real strong messages about the Parkinson's community, what we needed, and an approach to getting the things that we needed there. And that's what the abstract did, and it did it effectively. So rather than ask other people to do the job for us, we have set about, and that's what Special Interest Group-Black Diaspora is about, we have set about doing it. Commendations to Angela and this group. This is the kind of stuff we need. If they're not doing the support groups the way we think works more effectively, then fine. Get up and do it ourselves. Okay? And then spread the word. Spread the word. And so we're doing our own PSAs. And we're taking them out there everywhere we can go. Carry them in our hip pockets.
And so one of the things that's so important is have your own little script that you tell people. I'll be in a store, I'll be on a bus or airplane, and somebody will say something. And I said, do you know that when someone is diagnosed with Parkinson's, they've had it over 10 years, and that's because of the motor symptoms. It's both motor and non-motor symptoms. And they said, and there's an iceberg that shows most of the symptoms are motor and they're above water. And there is that line that is where all the non-motor symptoms, and believe it or not, most people have had a lot of non-motor symptoms. And that's why people look and say, do you really have Parkinson's? Because they probably are dealing with the non-motor symptoms. But people need to be aware that they're not going to catch it. They're not going to get cooties. But they need to know that these are the things that you can observe in your community and with people in the family, and et cetera, so that you can say, if you have 4 symptoms between the top of the iceberg and the bottom of the iceberg, maybe you need to go and see a neurologist, and then be patient and make sure that you give the person a chance to discuss. People said, are you a traveling salesman? I said, well, I haven't quite gotten to that t-shirt moment where I put the iceberg on the front and then say, talk to me about Parkinson's. I
think that's a good one.
Well, the 4 of us, we've known each other a long time, but we connected again in Spain. The 4 of us are still travel a fair amount, and so we still get out. So we still do pretty much what we want, how we want.
For the adaptation. For the adaptation.
Yeah, I think we have choices. How we want to live with our Parkinson's, and I think that it's important to focused on there are things we can do, and things and there are things we need to. If you need to work on your voice, work on your voice. You need to work on if you need to work. If you need better flexibility, find a trainer. Find
I'm giving you a second.
There are solutions. Small steps, baby steps. If you but there, I found that
And it's okay, it's okay sometimes, like you said. I don't want one more thing that I have to take care of, Angela, and you can get frustrated by that. That's okay. The thing is, you can't let it stop you. You can have your little pity party moment, but you have to keep moving on. Right?
It doesn't stop. So you can't stop. So you need to stay ahead of it. And that's the key. It's not one of the key, but it's just an important component to. Whoops.
Oh, Bernard's showing us something.
Okay.
I'm gonna say one more thing, Bernard. From our prep meeting, because I got it highlighted and everything. You said there's two types of people. It's the make it happen people or the let it happen people. Do you want to take a quick moment and just explain what the difference is between the two of them? Because I thought that was really profound.
All right. So, and I'll do that in the context of answering the question.
Okay.
That's in the
chat. Yeah.
So, basically, Dr. Charles Moore, he's actually not a doctor, he's a PhD, but he's, wrote a famous book called Crossing the Chasm, and it's about technology adoption in the world. And so we had him in to facilitate a retreat. And he introduced this concept of the two types of people in the world. And the concept is this. There's those people in the world who wait for things to happen to them. So they, have a problem, say they have a problem, but they wait for something to happen, somebody else to fix it, somebody else to come to them, something else to invent it, or whatever, but they sort of live within their space, and that's just who they are, okay? And then there's the kind of people who identify a problem, and they get up and do something about it. Whereas, as Michelle Obama said at the DNC, do something. So, and those are the make it happen people. So we like to count ourselves in the, and I apologize, for some reason, my computer is having a Parkinson's moment today. Okay. We try to put ourselves in the category of the make it happen. So this year's version of the poster you see over my shoulder, and here's the answer to the question. This year's version is called Innovative Solutions Evolving from Community-Based Leadership and PD Community Voice Input to Increase Diversity. In this case, we're going to a clinical trials conference, so it says clinical trial, but it's really the same thing across the board. So you all as members of the community, we see these challenges. In spaces like this, we can start focusing on solutions and then get up and make it happen. I mean, like I said, I can't say this enough. We are really impressed with this group and the model. And the reason is because it was a gap out there in social network. I mean, in support groups. But when you start talking to the community, they want things like this. So the beauty of what you all did is you got up and made it happen. Yeah, you got up and did it. You didn't go bang on the door, and I won't pick out any of those others, but you didn't go bang on their door and say, why don't you do this? Why don't you change your support group guidelines to say, do this or whatever? You got to make it happen. So you belong to the make it happen group, okay? And it doesn't mean that everything's going to be perfect and they're not going to be challenged, but you're getting up and doing it. You're getting up and challenging. So what we'll be highlighting and by the way, this is a draft, it's not all finished. What we'll be highlighting is innovative solutions that have come by working with our community. These ideas and things that we are implementing, came from our own people. So two things about that are important. One is that you don't have to, ask whether it's going to be culturally sensitive, whether it's going to be our community sensitive. Because if we're doing it, it's baked in. It's going to be there. You don't have to say, oh, they don't understand what we as patients are trying to tell them. Because we're the patients who are doing it. It's baked into whatever we do. And that's why it's important if we become more of the make it happen kind of people, because we're going to do it the right way. Now, it may not work for everybody. We got that. Okay. But that's not the goal. The goal is to fill in these gaps that those who are well-intended really mean well for our community and want to see us do better. But they're gaps. And they're gaps because, for one thing, they have a hard time listening. Now, I can't tell you how many sessions I've sit in where this is a quote. So now you're going to try to tell me how to be a care partner? You've never been a care partner, but you're going to tell me how to be a care partner. Okay. And I'll change the words because they were actually a little bit different. But the category they were putting me in, it was like, you're going to tell me how to be that? I'm that. And you're telling me how to be that. Okay. And they didn't really understand it, were, offended. But all I was trying to say was, you don't have it right for us, for me. Okay. And there's a bunch of people like me and you don't have it right for them. Okay. So we're just trying to get you to listen a little bit. A little tweak here, a little tweak there would make it better. Well, after a while, as you all know from your work, you get tired of that. Okay. And I get it. I get tired of trying to tell the doctors. So you know what I did? We said, okay, let's just go do it. Let's go do it. And then we're successful and we get invited to things like these conferences to tell them how we're doing what they're trying to do that they're not getting done. And so this abstract is a presentation of novel things that are happening, okay? And I put this one up because you had asked about the title, but let me change slides here for just a second, because what I want you to see is—
Bernard, if you have a copy that you can share with us, we would absolutely like to share that. I know you've got to present it too, so I don't want to violate.
After December 5th, when we present it.
Okay.
They have first dibs. They call, I don't know if you all know this term, but in the medical community, they have something called embargoes.
Embargoed, yeah.
Yeah. And so technically, I'm cheating by showing this to you in advance.
I can't see anything.
But look, I don't care.
The concept is true.
I promise I won't. Well, maybe I won't steal it. Well, maybe.
Or were you about to say what I think you were going to say, which is to sum up what you just said? Yeah. The experts are the people who are living with the condition, and then you have a PhD.
We both have, all four of us have PhDs, and
right.
Well, and that's not a joke. So here's what the next one I want to get to, and this is important. So what the organization we built is doing. Hello. We're presenting this slide, and it's titled Bridges. And we're that organization in the center here, where you see it right here. That's our organization. And this is about all the bridges that we are working on building to all these little islands. And what these islands are, they're different entities that are trying to help us in the PD community. But the problem is they're islands, right? Now, they don't understand that the biggest problem they have in trying to, really make our lives better is they don't talk to each other. They don't want to admit it. They say, we don't compete. Well, that's crap. They compete all the time. Not only do they compete, because of the way many of them are organized, they are very insular, okay? And so what we're doing now as a group, and I'm going to encourage your group to do this as well, is we're building bridges, and I'll blow this up so you can see some of the terms. All right, we're building bridges to these various groups, and then doing the thing, and across the communities, we're communicating these things that you see on the line. So you just mentioned a big one. Part of what we're doing to improve our life is to exchange experiential information. We are the PhDs. In fact, I'll just share this story. We're talking with a dean of a major medical school in the United States, in New York, well-known, well-renowned. And I said to him very clearly, I said, whenever we as patients are in the exam room, there are at least 2 experts, and there may be 3 experts in the room. And he looked at me with a straight face and appalled and said, we cannot afford to do that. We cannot afford to put 2 doctors in the room. And with a straight face, I looked right back at him and said, did I say you had to put 2 or 3 doctors in the room? I said, in the exam room, there are at least 2 experts. There's your God that you created. You know, you graduate these gods. You guys are really good at doing that. You send out these scientific experts called doctors, and they know everything you need to know about the scientific part of the disease. Okay? But in the room is also an equal expert, and they're the expert on the lived experience. And I encourage all of you all to view yourself that way. I know you're in the room with God, okay? But you know, you're on par with God because you have a PhD in this lived experience. You know more than they know about it. They don't understand it because they don't teach it in the school. They don't teach it. I tell you, our shock was when we found out, for example, 90+% of the research community has never sat down and had a good experience with people of the disease they're trying to cure. When we first ran into that, we said, oh no, this, we just fell into the wrong place. Somebody's pissed off. So the more we got engaged, the more we found out you're kidding. And in fact, I'm sitting next to a rock star. We were invited to the Bryant, what is his name? The Knight Foundation annual symposium that brings 500 plus of the biggest experts from around the world in Parkinson's disease research together. We didn't know. We thought we were talking to a bunch of students at first. We thought we were going for that. Well, it turned out Denise was on the panel because they were for the first time bringing in patient perspective. Got that? Okay. They've been meeting for years, and this was the first time they're bringing in patients. So we had a very interesting experience. They were so enthralled, they were following her around all the time for the rest of the day because they had never interacted with a Parkinson's patient, including the fact that a couple of them followed Denise into the bathroom. Okay? And she's a rock star. They were just like, whoa. So it turns out you have something very valuable to offer to the medical community and to your doctors specifically. And that is to help them really understand the environment that we work in and that we survive. And that it's a miracle anyway. I mean, when you get up in the morning, you don't know what you're going to do next for the rest of the day, except deal with it. They don't know what that's like. They got up in the morning, they know what time they had to be in the office, they knew what time the first appointment was, and click, and they know what box they have to check. They don't have to deal with, the box might move around the screen today. The receptionist may tell you at 3 o'clock that, she knows she was supposed to be there at 8, but she showed up at 3 in the afternoon. You don't deal with that, but we do. We do. And so
we got
it's very
2
important that we communicate that.
I hate to be the timekeeper. We have 2 minutes left.
I think
Carl,
give me 30 seconds.
You need
I think it's important for
great point, though.
Exactly. I think it's important for us not to be intimidated by our doctors, but to work with them, and to show them that we know a fair amount of what we're going through, and to share that with the doctor and be part of the team, and not lift our importance on the team. You realize that it's all about us, and
I think they call it patient-centered care.
yeah,
Yes.
and also if we need more resources to bring them to the team and talk to the
Then we ask for it. Yep, advocate. Denise, I think you had a closing comment.
Yes, my closing comment is for care partners. One of the things that will help care partners tremendously is acknowledge when you're having difficulty or would like some assistance. The first thing is, one, to go and get the disabilities tag and hang it in your car so you can park closer and be able not to walk long distances. Number two, when you're traveling on to an airplane, I fought this for a long time. Ask for a wheelchair service. It makes all the difference in the world. You don't feel rushed, and you'll get to the gate, and they know they'll get to the gate because they know that they have to wait for the wheelchairs to come in. And number three, just be open and honest in the communication about what the need is. And sometimes care partners will come up with some things that are really good ideas, but you haven't thought of it. Bernard's showing the sunflower badge. And most of the airports, they do accept the sunflower badges, which says this person is traveling as a disabled patient on this plane.
Or challenge patients. Yes. And what's important about this is we're working on building recognition of this everywhere so that people, if you're wearing this, they understand it's going to take you a few minutes longer to talk, to get there, to do this. And there are well-meaning people. They're not intending to be intolerant. They happen to be, but it's because nobody has taken a moment to enlighten them. And so what we're urging everybody to do is enlighten the community around us.
And this is available at Amazon, or you can go to your local airport that says they have a program and ask for one from the airport.
And if they don't, you can beat them over the head with a baseball bat.
And that's the way we'll end it. Thank you both so much. I don't think this is the end of the conversation, but thank you so much for your time. You guys are great. We would love to have you back. I'm gonna turn off the spotlight so everybody can see you all, and thank you so much for what you gave us today. And
yes,
Nancy, do you want to give us some final wrap-up comment?
Oh, we're just very appreciative of you spending the time with us, and I hope we'll be able to have you back for maybe a slightly longer time frame. But this has been very helpful. I know there's a couple questions we didn't get to, but
we'll try to address those maybe by email and see if we can do that, or we'll just have to have you all back, which sounds great to me.
We would like to come back, but in a different format. We want to come back the way we think most communities work. We just want to sit around the table and open every mic and have a conversation.
We can do that.
Yeah. We can do that. I think we can totally do that. We'd
love to. We got all these beautiful minds here, and I would love to, for the give and take that goes, and as people feel a question comes up, I'd love to hear from you, because we learn as much from you all as anybody else. You're the experts. I don't want to go sit in a medical school class. I don't want to know what alpha-synuclein is. I want to know what your daily life challenges are so we can go knock them down.
I think that sounds like a great follow-up.
Yes.
Bernard. So we will do that the next time. I think this was a great introduction to you all and the gems that you have. So let's do that. That would be a wonderful follow-up program for next year. I can't believe I'm saying 2025.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone who joined us.